So, hello, welcome back to another episode of the Self-Development with Tactics podcast. Once again, an episode with me, talking. Excited, actually really excited now. It's a tiny bit of a pity because stressful days demand certain ways of dealing with things. But this is fine. It really is. It's good. Let me see. Let me see what we can go through. Let's check out Reddit. It's been actually some time since I've been on Reddit, especially the Stoicism subreddit. So let us notice, let us review what we can find here. Is this? No, it's not. For all things related to Stoicism, r/Stoicism. How do I deal with this extreme sadness and sense of failure? What is good entry book for hypocrites? Origin of the Four Virtues. How to prevent victim blaming. A lot of media attention around here in the last couple of weeks went to talent show candidates accusing talent show coaches for sexually inappropriate behavior. I assume many readers here mostly blame themselves when they fare ill. Enchiridion 5, and this is exactly what victims of sexual harassment say. I blamed myself for years before speaking up. So how should we get to go about this? Saying it is up to you to speak up or put up boundaries, although correct, does not seem to do justice. I don't want to read it again. It is up to you to speak up or put up boundaries. Well, I wouldn't say that this is stoic. I wouldn't say that it is all us. That we did something, that we did X, Y, and Z, so, it happened, this sexual harassment. I wouldn't say so. And I think this is also part of Stoicism. Part of Stoicism is knowing when to use, quote unquote, use those virtues and how to interpret them, how to see them, how to feel them, how to go about them. Really important to think about, really important to keep in mind. These are just rules. These are just things to live by. But it is up to us to decide whether it is applicable to our situation at this point, or it isn't, or fully applicable, or it is just about seeing our life and the situation that we're facing in a different way. Could also be the case. But being like, okay, it's been my fault that I've been abused, maybe even fucking raped. No. Not really. Not always. I'm not saying that. Well, it is a very difficult topic. And it really depends on the situation. It really depends on things. But I would argue 90% of the time, it's definitely not the victim's fault. Period. And also being like, okay, it is my fault. I think it's not a good way to approach this. It's not a good way to live through these scenarios. So how should we get about this? So my way out would be that I apply Enchiridion 5 to myself only. It is up to me to blame myself, or rather figure out how I myself contribute to a problem. Yeah, in the end, it's just always about myself, isn't it? Those virtues are those virtues that I am living by. I am living by, and I am seeing the world through. Like glasses, like a lens that I use to navigate through the world and make my life easier and better. And this is also, I would even argue, one of those critical things, and one of those things that I am, most critical about. It is something I use, it is something I say, it is something I do, and so I can decide how to use it. I can shift things in such a way that everything that I'm doing is virtuous. I can convince myself that this is how things are. And, there is probably a reason why there are certain books, that say, okay, this is virtuous and this isn't. I don't know if there's something about sexual harassment in one of those books. Could be the case, since, unfortunately, it's not a thing that's very new. It's always been the case quite, and but my end point kind of is, and all my conclusio is, using those virtues in a way that benefit you makes sense. Recently struggling LF input. Why do I put off being good today for tomorrow? Hey folks, I've had an extended period without work now. Fortunately, I've money saved up as it was my choice to leave work, and I'm still looking for something that feels ethical. Anywho, I have a lot of downtime and I wasted so much of it. I watch videos instead of read, I sleep in, I eat out of boredom, drink, etc. I know what I'm doing and it keeps happening lately. Fortunately, my brother has been getting me to go to the gym more again, which has been helping with my mood, but I'm still not 100%. I'm looking for some insight/input. Thank you. Well, I would say that having some downtimes and not being fully productive or whatever you want to call it is fine. You know, for some periods of time, it is fine. But the goal is getting back to a healthy work-life balance, getting to a healthy lifestyle and a lifestyle that feels good. If you yourself do not feel good with the lifestyle and the way of living that you're having at this point in time, change it. There is no reason why it should be, keeping X, Y, or C, even if you really, really, really dislike it, even if it is making you really upset and feeling really bad. Like, you should not do so. There's no sensible reason why this makes sense. So, if there's something that you do not dislike, change it, because you can. We have the ability to respond to situations. We have response ability. Stoic perspective on food, the perspective is you should not eat for pleasure, should only be fuel. Which countries teach/exhibit Stoicism, national character? Would actually be kind of interesting because I don't know any of them. I think ancient Rome was too influenced by Greek democracy to be like that. Obviously, there's Sparta. To be honest, this kind of a loaded question to accept some loaded answers. To come to mind for me, Germany in the last 80 years, emerging from one of the darkest times in human history, a warden bankrupt country was able to turn itself around and become one of the most prosperous and industrious countries in the world. They adopted an attitude that the past cannot be changed and to simply do the work what needs to be done and becoming a much more virtuous place in the process. For the most part. I would say Finland. No country does it better than them. They embody most of the Stoic values as a whole nation. Just look up Sisu, S-I-S-U, and you will realize what I am talking about. Really, really interesting. I'm hoping I can get some analysis on a quote from Nietzsche in Beyond Good and Evil concerning Stoicism, or Stoics. You decide to live according to nature. Oh, you noble Stoics, what fraud of words. Imagine to yourself a being like nature, boundlessly extravagant, boundlessly indifferent, without purpose or consideration, without pity or justice, at once fruitful and barren and uncertain. Imagine to yourself indifference as a power. How could you live in? Probably accordance. I've lost my line. Fuck off. It's actually the same as living according to life. How could you do differently? Why should you make the principle out of who you yourself are and must be? In reality, however, it is quite otherwise with you, blah, 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 blah. Well, I don't know. In the end, there are some guidelines. I view certain lines and certain quotes and certain decisions, maybe structures of philosophy, whether it is Nietzsche or Stoicism or something else, as guidelines. Guidelines that are based on those times. So sometimes it is just directly applicable to times that we're living in, maybe even future times, and sometimes it just isn't, period. And you have to adapt to that, and you have to see that, and you have to think about that, and you then have to decide in which way you can use those principles, you can use those thoughts, because of course Nietzsche was fucking smart, other writers were fucking smart, and it makes sense to listen to them, or at least think about what they're saying, but then once again reevaluate whether it is something that you want to live by or you do not. And it is up to you to decide whatever the fuck you want to do. And that's quite it. But yeah, that being said, I'm hopefully going to see you next time. So, bye-bye.